and let us all do we can to build a better future.
The Biden-Harris administration is starting to sink. They're starting to fail. Well, not starting. They're continuing to sink. I think if everyone's seen recently Susan Sarandon's tweet of the Titanic sinking, that's the Biden-Harris administration. We've talked about how, again, look, they're not following through with a lot of their campaign promises. The progressives that compromise their values with the Biden-Harris administration got nothing in return. And when being polled, American voters across the board are agreeing that this administration is a complete disaster. But Heartland's media talked about this during the primary and general election of a potential Biden presidency. It would be a disaster. Who can relate to the Biden-Harris administration? It was a disaster from the very beginning. Number one, you have Biden, who's a career politician, who is one of the architects of this neoliberal nightmare that we're in. And then you have Kamala Harris, who wasn't even popular during the primary, got 0 delegates. Her campaign went bankrupt and didn't even participate during the first primary election. This campaign, that entire campaign and this entire presidency, this entire presidential administration is an epic failure. And now we got to report on this one more time, how a lot of key profile individuals are leaving Kamala Harris. There's something wrong where you're having everyone leave in the first year. This is going to really impact the Democrats, especially when we go into 2022 and however 2024 will play out. So to all the progressives, all the Democrats, especially the presidential candidates that were in the primary during 2020 and decided to endorse Biden, this is your fault too. Your endorsement and support of the Biden-Harris administration, turning a blind eye to the election fraud that also took place during 2020, you're responsible for the Democrats right now failing. And again, the thing is, I guess that's what the Democrats are good at. Now, I'm going to vote independent during the midterm election cycle. I'm going to vote independent during the presidential election cycle of 2024. Well, we got 2 videos from Case Study QB, because it turns out now, known Biden supporter and biggest cheerleader, Symone Sanders, is leaving Kamala Harris. So again, 2 videos from Case Study QB. He's doing fantastic work. Be sure to support him on his YouTube channel and his Odyssey channel as well. These 2 videos are from Fox News, but I think it's very interesting that how they're reporting it and how they're talking about Symone Sanders. Again, not a low-profile person, a high-profile person in the Biden-Harris administration, abandoning Kamala Harris. Let's play this first video.
This isn't just the number of people leaving on her staff, it's the caliber of people. Symone Sanders is a big name in Democrat politics. Okay? She worked for a boss, Bernie Sanders, who was not a small voice, didn't dodge questions, didn't do the Biden walk away, didn't do the Kamala Harris giggle fest, didn't do that. So she steps in during the campaign at one point. She works through the first 11 months or so of the presidency and reaches a point where we've seen fake events with hired children about space with Kamala Harris. We've seen crisis after crisis get nothing but a giggle, and I do like her Converse hopping off those planes. Those are cute, but they're not a job skill. So all of this, it isn't just the number, it's the caliber. I mean, this is how many go-arounds has she had for her comms team? Yeah. We've been talking about this for months, people coming and going. It's a problem when the people who are supposed to be front and center, your face, if you will, of your office are leaving. It's not staff behind the scenes. Symone Sanders is a big name no matter who she works for.
Yeah, and Symone Sanders, I used to spar with her on sets, being on the other side of the political aisle. She's a very talented spokesperson. It's my view the White House didn't have her out there enough. She should have been a very visible face of the Biden administration. She's very talented, but...
Okay, so let's take a step back. I actually want to read a chat from our audience, who, again, mind you, our audience, I love you guys. You're awesome. I want to give a shout out to Golden Silence. Symone Sanders twisted herself into pretzels, defending Jim Crow Joe from being a racist to a sexual predator. In turn, Joe 30330 returned her favor by giving the job of press secretary to Jan Penske. So there you go. And it is funny to see that, because I was always wondering during the entire primary of 2020, especially during the early stages of it, the mental gymnastics that Symone Sanders was doing on corporate media. We talked about that nonstop during the early days before we moved into our new studio. And You know, it's just very interesting how now everyone is abandoning ship. When, if we just rewind back the clocks just a year ago, during the early stages of the primary, everyone was saying just how great Biden is and how on point he will be and how a great president he'll be and how he'll defeat Trump. Everyone was doing everything they could to carry water for Biden. And now we're seeing the Biden-Harris administration in action just 1 year right now. And everyone's abandoning the ship. They see firsthand just how much of an epic failure Biden is. Nothing has fundamentally changed, but again, we have to look at another issue that Biden succeeded on. He made the oligarchs richer, and he never followed through with any promises that he made with the progressives. So to all the cul-de-sac progressives and anyone that had hope for the Biden-Harris administration, well, you got played. You were made a fool of. And to all the Democratic candidates that endorse Biden, well, this is your responsibility too. And this is why I am such a firm supporter of third parties and why we have to break away from this two-party system that we're in. Americans right now are being evicted from their homes and apartments. They're struggling to make ends meet. We don't have social programs or social safety nets to help out working class citizens. And across the board, American voters are suffering. We are hurting right now. And this administration is completely tone deaf. But I remember all the propaganda that was given before us, how the soul is going to return back to us. The soul of this country is going to come back. Not so much anymore. We got another video from Case Study QB. Let's go and pull this video up. It's very interesting again. Fox News covering this perspective of Symone Sanders abandoning ship.
Symone Sanders wasn't a Kamala Harris pick. The president of the United States, Joe Biden, instructed her to go over to the wing of the vice president to work in that comms department. She was known to be, I spent a lot of time on the campaign trail, the rock of the campaign during the Joe Biden term. She worked for Bernie Sanders. She was very instrumental in securing the black vote when a lot of folks were a little iffy about Joe Biden considering the crime bill. Look, the president of the United States, this is his fault.
There's a lot of things voters were iffy on in regards towards Biden. Number one, yes, the crime bill. Number two, and again, Bill Clinton apologized for that, and that's as far as I'm going to go. But Biden has yet to apologize or change his opinion on the crime bill that impacted millions of Americans. Joe Biden also was in huge support for the war in Iraq. He also supported the credit card corporations in 2005 to make student debt for what it is. He was against busing and desegregation. He's been on the wrong side of history, but so many people are saying that he's better than Trump. He's so much nicer than Trump. He'll return the soul back to this country, and gee, nothing has changed. The Biden-Harris administration is still implementing a lot of Trump's policies, both foreign and domestic. Vote blue no matter who, K-Hive, cul-de-sac progressives, corporate media, and to all the Democratic presidential candidates that were running in 2020. What's your excuse? What's your statement? You know you made a mistake. But because you had Trump derangement syndrome, we're still stuck in this. And oh, surprise, surprise, Trump is going to run again in 2024. I'll be surprised if he doesn't. That's how crazy we're in. We're coming right back full circle. No one's learned a damn thing. And yet, at the end of the day, we're still hurting. Let's play the rest of this video.
Look, the president of the United States, this is his fault. He selected Kamala Harris. He knew it was going to be a disaster to begin with because the Democratic voters rejected her on the campaign. All the issues that we're highlighting right now were there before he decided to select her, yet he selected her. But there's something deeper here. It's crisis after crisis and having the fall person. You know, Symone Sanders could be upset right now because she should be at the podium at the White House right now. Jen Psaki was not a Biden person in the middle of the campaign during the primary.
True.
She later flipped the script
right here.
after everything.
I find that funny too, because again, we talked about this during the primary. If you go back and look at Heartlands Media's earlier content during covering the 2020 Democratic primary race, Symone Sanders was doing mental gymnastics all day, every day for Biden's campaign. And her reward was to be pushed in the back. That was it. I can understand it. And working with Kamala Harris, well, here's the thing. We did 2 stories about how a lot of key allies and aides in Kamala Harris's camp are abandoning her. We even did a few other stories as well where there's a huge divide between Joe Biden's camp and Kamala Harris's camp. This administration is a complete disaster. There's a lack of communication. There's a lack of getting anything done. There's so much infighting happening. The 2022 midterm election cycle is going to be hilarious to cover because I'm wondering how the Democrats are just going to somehow scratch and claw their way back up. Now, I know some people who've been critical of our lens media have said, well, how come you're not pushing back at the Republicans? Well, there's a lot of things that we could do to push back against the Republicans, especially the Republican establishment. But at this point in time right now, what can be said about the Republican establishment that has not already been said? And when we look at the Democrats who are supposed to be correct on a lot of certain issues, they fail. So when I say on this show, we got to look at third parties, we got to look at supporting good ballot initiatives and standing up against bad ballot initiatives and building infrastructure without connection or ties to any political parties, we have to move on away from them because we're just repeating the same 6 cycle over and over again. Whether it's a Democratic or Republican presidential administration or a Democratic-controlled House or Senate, nothing is being done to help out working class citizens. And so when we see these high-profile individuals do mental gymnastics to defend their said candidate, it's a system that only rewards those that are still relevant. This is the system that we have, where money is speech and corporations are people. No working class citizen right now has a seat at the table in Washington, D.C. It's only lobby groups and people who are still useful. All the while, Americans are struggling. Let's play the rest of this video if we can.
Thing was said and done, and there was a lot of people that are in the White House that are upset about that. People that were day one Biden supporters that went through the struggle of his poll numbers going up and down, and when everything was said and done, he brought the Obama folks back because they needed someone to steer the ship. And that goes back to leadership, and this is why the White House is in disarray right now.
I want to just piggyback, if I may, real quick off of something Lawrence just said, which is that Symone Sanders has never made a secret of her ambitions for her job at the White House. She wrote in her memoir last year she wanted to be White House press secretary. Then just a few months ago, I think it was in the spring or over the summer, Bakari Sellers over at CNN reported she told him that she was hurt and stung when she was passed over for the job and Jen Psaki got it. So personal ambition is a factor here. It's nice to think that everybody who leaves the White House does so on some grand principle or because they disagree with the policy. Sometimes they're just normal people and their personal ambitions are frustrated.
Yeah, personal ambition, but nothing for the people. We have individuals in Washington, D.C. that have just ambition for them to build up their own career. And this has been going on for a long time under both the Republican and Democratic establishment. I want to pull up another article as well, because it's not only Symone Sanders that's abandoning Kamala Harris. You know, Kamala Harris, the great popular Democratic candidate that had a failed campaign, was utterly destroyed by Tulsi Gabbard and got 0 delegates. Well, it turns out 2 other individuals are leaving Kamala Harris's staff. The exodus from Kamala Harris' administration is poised to continue with 2 more senior advisors who reportedly told their colleagues that they are on their way out. The news comes a day after the vice president's spokesperson quit. Peter Vels, the director of Harris's press operations, and Vince Evans, the deputy director of the Office of Public Engagement and Intergovernmental Affairs, are reportedly set to resign in the near future, the Washington Post reported, citing administration officials. While both Vels and Evans are expected to quit as Harris's aides, they might not stay unemployed for long, with the Post reporting that they are likely to land jobs in or close to the administration. So that means they're probably going to go over to Biden's camp. Again, further infighting. The report comes on the heels of the departure of Harris's advisor and chief spokesperson, Symone Sanders. Commenting on Sanders' exit on Thursday, Harris said she can't wait to see what her former spokesperson will do next, while dodging questions about whether it was part of an impending large-scale reshuffle in her communications team. Well, I've told you how I feel about Symone. Next question, Harris said, with her creepy laugh, probably. It is to be expected. Sanders' departure came shortly after Harris's communication director, Ashley Etheny, announced she would be leaving before the end of the year to pursue other opportunities. The exodus comes amid reports of dysfunction in Harris's team and internal strife between her staff and Biden's at the White House. There have reportedly been growing concerns that Harris is not well positioned to become Biden's successor should he not run for a second term. Wow. It's like almost Heartland's media predicted this. Daniel, Laney, Kira, myself. But also, wait, I want to give a shout out to Convo Couch, Mikasa Casa, Jimmy Dore, Graham Elwood, Ron Placone, Lee Camp, and so many others. Frank Analysis, everyone. Everyone said this. Everyone kept on repeating this. This administration is set for failure. Now, they did have a window of opportunity to maybe get things done. And through executive order, mind you, Biden alone can make cannabis legal, forgive student debt, and start implementing Medicare for all. 3 things through executive order. Oh, by the way, too, you know that Senate parliamentarian, the one that's been a huge roadblock to this great progressive bill that's supposedly going to help us out, that's only going to help out the rich? Well, the Senate parliamentarian can be overruled by not only President Joe Biden, but also by Vice President Kamala Harris. We've said this about Biden and Harris. They're not popular. The only reason why they won was because there was so much propaganda and Trump derangement syndrome going on against the Trump presidency. But history's repeating itself. 2024, we're going to see Donald Trump run again. It's happening. The reports still keep coming in over and over again. This administration, the Biden-Harris administration, has low favorability. Voters right now are enraged with the lack of action that's being done. Nothing has changed except that the rich got richer, and a lot of Trump's foreign and domestic policies are still being implemented by the Biden-Harris administration. So who's going to be the candidate in 2024 for the Democrats? Are we once again going to see a clown circus for the Democrats? We're going to have so many other individuals, probably not progressives at this point. This is why I'm saying right now for this midterm election cycle, we have to start building infrastructure for third parties. We need to make it happen now.